Well, welcome again to another episode of My Hope is Built On. And again, I have, I think every week I got an amazing guest, Darrell, and it's because everybody comes from a different perspective of life. Everybody's gone through their own unique challenges. Everybody's gone through their own journeys. And even as I was just talking to you earlier, I just looked at your career and I looked at your past and I just saw the amazing seasons of life that you've gone through as well. And I just, I was really impressed with your background, Darrell. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Darrell Williams. And Darrell, why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. Definitely glad to be here. A little bit about me. I grew up in Compton, California. So for those that may not be familiar with it, right, there's a movie that came out called Boys in the Hood, right? That was the culture that I grew up in. And at that time, Compton was the fourth most dangerous city in America. I have two younger brothers and a younger sister. They're about 3, 6, 7 years behind me. So they grew up during the time of straight out of Compton, right? So definitely a different type of culture.
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of people out here in the DC area and they're asking me like, man, did they add anything to those movies? I'm like, nope, everything they said is pretty much how it was. No need to add anything. So they're like, wow, what an interesting background to come from. And for me, dealing with the theme of this show, my hope is built on, I had to figure out, right, in high school, what was I going to do with my life, right? And how was I going to get there? I knew there was something bigger than Compton and LA. Didn't know how I was going to get there. So fortunately for me, I grew up in a faith-based home. My mom definitely instilled faith in us. My dad, he didn't go to church as much, but he still respected, God and things of that nature. But it was always funny. We were talking about football, right? I just
Yeah.
remember the 10 o'clock games, right? And we would go to Sunday school at 10 o'clock. I remember my father on the couch. I'm like, why did he get to watch the game? And I have to go to Sunday school to church. And it was one of those, do as I say, not as I do type of thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, just getting used to that. But definitely my mom really helped putting that faith in me early on, which allowed me to have that anchor because, again, going into the military, there's a lot of things that happen, a lot of challenges. I had some very great assignments, not like the typical military member, but even in those types of assignments, we'll talk about, there's always storms or different seasons, as you say, that come in your life and you still got to perform and you
Yeah.
still got to take care of your team and be that example. So I was just very fortunate. For me, I joined the military right out of Compton and spent 20 years in the Army. Had assignments in Germany, a lot of them in the DC area, Korea, and then back to the DC area, and retired after 20 years in the Army. And then from there, worked as a contractor supporting the government, and then eventually worked back into the government, but still taking care of military service member just from a different perspective.
Hmm.
And in the midst of all of that, started a local speaking business, certified as a master certified life coach, certified facilitator. Eventually used to work with youth. So became a youth worker, then a youth minister and a youth pastor. Right now I'm an associate pastor at a church, and my wife and I both lead the couples ministry.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good. Like I said, it's just amazing. And also just again, thank you for your service to our country too. I mean,
Thank
that's
you.
amazing. I appreciate
Loved it.
that.
Loved it.
Um, well, Darrell, I already told you, but when you think of hope, what does hope mean to you?
So when I think of hope, Dan, what it means to me is regardless of what situation you're going through, right? There's just that thought, right? That knowing, even in the midst of the unknown, that things are going to get better.
Mm.
And that's always been um, one of the things I live off of. And it's just so interesting, right? When you can make that a part of who you are, right? In the military, you make a lot of different friends, and sometimes you don't see each other for a long time. And then when you come back, right, you just pick up on that last
Yep.
conversation.
Yep.
And then I never forget one of my best friends, Mark Alley, very sharp guy. Um, probably hadn't seen him in like 10, 15 years. I just happened to see him at this agency that I work for. He was over there visiting. And the first thing he said out of 15 years, "Hey, what do you know? The most optimistic man in the world. How's everything going?" Right. And just for him to say that, right? I just remember a conversation we used to have. He's like, "Gosh, man, you just never, have a bad day." It's like, no, I have bad days. I just choose to deal with them a little bit differently.
Hmm.
But no, just for him to say, look who it is, the most optimistic man in the world. I just thought that was a great
Yeah,
compliment.
no. Yeah, that's a great testament. I'll tell you that much. Yeah. Well, and I think, and that's funny is, it's what you just said is so simple yet so profound, because again, we can seeing light at the end of the tunnel is very, very difficult, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you said that, it's like, wow, that seems so simple, yet for a lot of people, that's so difficult to navigate, right? I mean, just even see that. And so, yeah, so my question then would be after that is just, well, what is your hope built on then? And how have you managed these challenges and navigate life? I mean, I know you got that hope and that optimism that something good, but how do you persevere? Because I'm sure you've gone through some challenges.
No, that's a great question. So for me, and a lot of the people that know me, it's so interesting. My hope is definitely built on my faith.
Mm.
Right. I mean, it was one thing to go to church and, your mom make you go, but, once you're in the army, you don't have to go anymore. And it's like, oh, okay, I can go to the club, I can go this. But I found myself still going to the church because it was just, I just found that solace. And for me, especially when I was a youth minister, I used to tell the kids, it's not about, things that I can't do. It's about things that I can do better.
Mm.
Right? Making better decisions, right? Doing things that's not going to just help me, but help those around me. And so my faith has carried me a long way. And one thing I'm proud of, sometimes the world kind of gets distorted when it comes to they meet, personal faith, whether they're Catholic, Christian, or whatever the case is. And sometimes they always think that you're going to try to change them or try to convert them into something. And I just made it a point throughout my life that, unless you ask me about something particular to help you in a situation, I'm just going to live my faith in front of you.
Yeah.
Right. You will see the decisions that I make and how I make those decisions and how I handle adverse situations. And it never failed. People would eventually come and say, "Hey, I appreciate, your words during that time. I appreciate, you coming over and asking about me and my family." And it wasn't until later, they say something then like, "Just curious, are you a Christian or something?" And I'm like, sure I am. And they would go, "But why didn't you say it?" And I love when they ask me that because I tell them because I shouldn't have to say it.
Yeah.
Right. You should see something different by the way I live. And I hope that the way I live is a way that can help inspire others.
Yeah. It's funny you said that. I love that. Live your faith. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and our faith teaches us that that they'll know who we are by our love.
Yes.
Which tells me that I don't have to do anything in a boisterous way. It's about how I live my life. And like you said, it's living your faith. And when people see that, it's more authentic than going around puffing your chest and pounding on it saying, "This is who I am," So
true.
yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, I know that, coming out of Compton and listen, I'm familiar with the Compton area,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll still never forget. I sold mobile cell phones, and when they first came out, it was like, the like the bricks, when they first,
Right.
and I had my first deal was with a mom in Compton, and I had to go down there and deliver it. And they looked at me like I was the strangest guy for even doing what I was doing. And
Sure.
for me, I was just thinking, "Hey, you ordered it. I'm here to deliver it."
That's right. That's right.
But how did you persevere? I mean, because I know you could get sucked into going down the path that would have led you into, the gangs and everything that was going on in that area.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, I know your mom was one that helped instill that, but how did you rise above that though? I mean, because the pressure was always there.
It definitely was, Dan. And I think for me, and I always tell anybody, regardless of where you are in your life, it's always good to have two things: mentors and accountability partners.
Mm,
I can look throughout every season in my life and I can point exactly to whether it was times that were not so good and times that were good. Both of them revolved around having a mentor in my life that I could turn to, and then having accountability partners that were able to check up on me, and make sure that I was walking whatever path that I told them that I wanted to walk. Right.
yeah.
And even in high school, right, it was a group of us from the neighborhood, and about out of seven of us, one of us went to college, one of us went to the military, the other one's got some really good cool jobs in California. But again, they were my original accountability partners. It was like we all kind of determined, okay, we're not going to take this path. We're going to support each other, right? We see somebody going too much to the left, we're like, hey, get back over here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the accountability partners helped me out definitely throughout Compton. And then the mentors, two people, actually three outside of my mom and dad. There was the deacon at my church, Deacon Walter Staten, right? May rest in peace. Just a great man of faith, right? And what I loved about him was he used to teach this adult Bible study, and I would go with my mom just, for safety reasons, right?
Yeah.
And I was sitting in there, he was like, do you actually want to be a part of it? And I'm like, no, this is for the adults, right? He's like, doesn't matter. We can make it for you too. And then Tim, that was the biggest thing for me. Like, here's this guy, to me, he was like a giant, right, in
Yeah.
the church, right? And he was tailor his Bible study to make sure that even I, as a young middle schooler, right, when even a teenager, middle schooler, would be able to understand it. So I just thought the world of this guy. Like, man, he's making it seem so practical. Like, it wasn't this old story from long time ago. It was like, this is what happened, this is how it applies today, and here's some similarities. And I was just in awe with that. Like,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
he's really making it where I can see why it would be good to have faith, right? It would be good to treat people right a certain way and things of that nature. So he was that first mentor, and then two other ones I had two older cousins, and again, just great guys. Actually, neither one of them were really people of faith, but just the way they carried themselves, right? Just really solid citizens, and would always, ask me deep questions that I wasn't ready for in high school, right? And so, what are you gonna do when you grow up? Like, I don't know. I'm only in the 10th grade. But they were always prompt me because they wanted me to think ahead, and whatever that goal is. Now back it up. What are those steps that's going to get you to that goal? And to this day, I always tell them any success I had is definitely tied to both of them. And they're so funny. They'll say, "No, you're giving us a little bit too much credit." Like, no, I'm not. You guys showed me what could happen, and especially like you said, growing up in Compton, right? To see, somebody that was successful, that looked like me, a little bit older than me, but was doing it a different way. And
Yep.
to me, I just thought that meant a lot.
Yeah. No. No. And I think that's awesome because, and that is such a big deal. Let me ask you a question. Did you ever grow out of mentorship and accountability?
Never. To this day, everybody that knows me, they were like, okay, when's my next mentor session? Or
Yeah.
I know
Yep.
you're going to ask me about my accountability partner, because they know that it's not just words, but it's really a lifestyle if you want it to be. And I always tell people, because a lot of them keep thinking like, well, obviously you're going to be my mentor, right? Like, nope, I want to put you around other people, right? Depending on where you are in your career, right? I'll introduce you to somebody, and if you think it's a good fit, it's great. If not, we'll look for somebody else. So I definitely live by mentors, accountability partners
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah. And I think it's even more so critical for women seem to catch that earlier. Men don't seem to catch it as much. And I think it's a pride thing, clearly.
Yep.
But, and that's one area where again, even as a man, I know I need that. If I don't have that, then I'm prone to wander is what the,
That
and
is a
so
fact.
yeah, and so you need that.
So true. So true. And like I tell people, prove me wrong, but I tell them 20 years in the military, 30 years in the government. I've never seen anyone that did not have a mentor or an accountability partner not become successful.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. Yeah. That's so cool. So talk to me a little bit more, some of the challenges you faced, because again, Compton's goes back, but you've had some things through life. Like I said, you've served in the military, you've served in our government, you've served, so talk to me about some of those other challenges.
So I would say some of the earlier challenges was, especially even though I was in the military, I was still always trying to give back. Right. So I
Mhm.
remember when I got assigned to the DC area, and I was, at that time I was just a youth worker. I wasn't, looking to go into ministry or anything like that. But I just had this passion of really wanting to connect with young people, right? Wanting to help steer them the right way, not tell them what to do, but to help them become better decision makers. And that's one thing I'm always learning from other people, right? So I would go to kids and like, hey, what is that you don't like about grown-ups,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they're brutally honest, right? They're like, they act like we don't know what we're doing. They act like they were born perfect. They act like they don't remember the mistakes they made. And I just took all of that into like, that's the type of youth work I want to be. I want to be the opposite of what they're saying.
Yeah.
So some of the earlier challenges was going against these, stereotypes and cultures of what the youth saw in front of them, and to try to get them to see it in a different way, to see that, hey, there's more than your neighborhood, there's
Mm.
more than this community. And it was just a good challenge, because now, they're like, well, you're only saying that because you were in the military. I'm like, no, I grew up in Compton. No way. How'd you get out of there? Right.
Yeah.
So now you get their attention, and then you go back to the original. Well, how did I get out of there? I made better decisions. I surrounded myself around certain people. I was anchored in a faith, right? Or
Yeah.
my faith.
Yeah.
So, no, not telling them what to do, but just trying to let them see that there's other things out there. So, some of the earlier challenges definitely was, how do you help these young people, right, become better decision makers without telling them what to do, without, standing in place with their parents, things like that, but walking beside them and their parents,
Mm.
right, to help them approach that goal. So being a youth worker and eventually a youth minister was definitely a huge challenge. And then in the military, obviously the bigger challenge is leading other people,
Yeah.
right? What people don't realize is in the military, you have regular people that have regular problems, right? You have, your son not acting right, your daughter not wanting to listen to you,
Yeah.
and yet you still got to come to work and 7:30 or 8, whatever it is, after you've done your physical training and all that. Now you got to do this job,
Yeah.
but yet you still have all this heaviness on you because things aren't right at the home. So some of my other challenges, was how do I help my team, maneuver through their personal challenges? Because, as any leader, whether you're in the military or not, people need to know that you care about them, right? And
Mhm.
it's not just the what you can do for me. Like, Dan, you work for me, keep your problems at the door. You just come in here and give me 8 good hours of whatever. It's like, no, a good leader is, hey, Dan, I noticed you're not smiling as much.
Yeah.
If you want to talk, I'm available, right? And just making yourself, a willing vessel to, be a listener. Like sometimes, especially, man, we're so terrible at this, Dan. We always want to solve problems and fix this. And sometimes people just need a listening ear, right? So just being that listening ear, I learned to do that a lot. And it helped those that I led become better versions of themselves. It allowed them to see different ways. I never would tell anybody what to do,
Yeah.
but you would just ask those right questions. Well, what if you did do this, right? What would that lead to? What if you talk to your daughter in this particular way? And what could that do? And just allowing them to come up with their own answers, right? It was
Yeah.
just a fabulous thing. And then personally, right? My wife and I, we got married a lot older. We're like 32 years old. And the first time we tried to have children, right? Suffered not just one, but two miscarriages.
Wow.
So I always tell people, I don't just say this stuff because nothing's ever happened in my life. I say
Yeah.
this because of the things that did happen, that same thing that I was living in front of you, I had to experience it. And like, okay, you've been giving everybody else a drink of this. Now you need to drink from the Kool-Aid, and you tell me how it tastes and how it's
Yeah.
going to help you. And I'll tell you, man, that was definitely huge, because you mentioned earlier about men and pride, right? There's not a lot of conversation, right, when there's a miscarriage amongst the husbands,
No.
right? The women, they'll talk, right? They'll share, they'll cry, they'll do whatever it is. But as men, right, we try to like, hey, suck it up, drive on, right?
Yep.
Be
Yep.
there for your wife, right? But it's like, but who's there for you?
Yep.
And that's when I really found that, what my life was built on. My faith really was tested, because,
Yeah.
like anybody, you do question God. Like, hey, I understand the first one, right? You need me to be a modern day Job. I got it. Okay. But then when the second one hits, it's like, okay, now you need to really tell me what's going on here.
Yeah.
Right. How, what lesson am I supposed to learn from? I know it's a lesson there. I'm not feeling that lesson right now. I don't even see it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give up on you, because I know you're still there for me, but I just need some help and some guidance, because I'm going through a tough time and my wife is going through at the same time. So think about that, Dan. Your best friend is going through the same challenge you're going through.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Tough.
It is tough. Yeah. I know I've experienced some similar stuff as well. And it's one of those, it is a very challenging thing for you to kind of go through. And then, like you said, not being able to have an avenue to even share that sometimes, because again, how do I share this? I don't want to get emotional from somebody, I don't want to break down, and I want to be strong for my wife, and all that stuff. And so, yeah, I get it. You've touched on a lot of good stuff. And, especially as it relates to generations, and you're dealing with the various generations. And I'm a firm believer the same way you are. It's not about telling them what to do with their life. It's because they feel that's all we do is we look down, and it's a generational curse. It's happened over multiple generations, right? We just keep repeating this generational curse of criticizing the next generation.
So true. So true.
And so it's like, when, we're stopping the cycle and saying, hey, listen, you got value to bring to this world. Talk to me about what you want to do about it, and so I think that, that's powerful in and of itself. I'm a firm believer that people are not already have the answers within themselves.
Yes.
Right. They already know. They know they made a bad choice. I don't need to point that out to them.
That's right. Show some grace.
So let's not compound more, more misery on top of that, not more condemnation, making them feel more guilty about that choice. Let's talk about what we're going to do to move on, and how we're going to prevent those choices from happening again. And that's the action plan, and,
Yes.
and again, like you said, is pouring into that next generation and giving them the confidence that they need to fail forward, right?
Yes. Yes.
and know that somebody's there to be along their side when they do. I'm going to be here, and we're going to walk together through that. And I go, what a powerful thing. And I know, and, I've just repeated everything you said, but just
No, you're right.
It's just, but it is. I love that. And I think right now that is such a needed thing. I do leadership coaching as well. And
awesome.
And so one of the things I do is I'll go in and I talk to these leaders who actually would say, I don't get these millennials. I don't get these Zers, and I go, you see what you're doing? You're already labeling them.
Yes. Yes.
And we continue to put labels on everything as our reasoning for our actions. It's our excuse. And it's not a good excuse. It's a poor excuse, and it's a lazy excuse, because you're not wanting to put forth the effort to actually get to understand that point of view. And
no, you're exactly right. And I think sometimes, like you said, if we can pause enough, we can really look at, I call them opportunities, right? Because you used to always hear people say, oh, this younger generation, they don't want to hear us. Like, oh, that's actually not true.
Yeah.
They want to hear us when we engage them in conversation. They don't want to hear us when we're trying to, like you said, tell them, that back in my day we used to do this and do that. It's like, who, when you were little, you didn't want to hear that. So like you said, why are you repeating those steps? Right? Find a different way to talk to them, because again, if you look at it from an opportunity perspective, you actually have a chance to help them to build their hope in something that they may have never even thought about,
Yeah.
whether it's hope in decision making, hope in making right choices, hope in how to deal with adversity, how to overcome situations where you feel like you were abandoned. Because that's the key with a lot of young people. They feel like we as adults, right? We're the one that messed them up, right? We made
Yep.
selfish decisions about getting divorced. We made selfish decisions about, I'm trying to hurt her, so I'm going to take the kids, even though I know I don't have time to take care of them,
Yep.
right? I told my son or my daughter that, yeah, dad's going to spend some time with you, but yeah, we let work and all these other priorities get in the way of these beautiful moments that we could have been sharing with our kids. So now it's like, well, I can't trust an adult because my dad, Darrell, wasn't there in my life. Right? So why
Yep.
should I trust an adult? So we, as these leaders, we get to rebuild that trust in them. We get to give them new hope, a new
Yep.
foundation. And that's what's so great about kids, man. They're so resilient that if you're honest and sincere with it and are really going to, put in the time to walk with them, you can really change their lives.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. Yeah. I just, it's so powerful with what you're saying, because I think it's, like I said, we're at such a time right now where it needs to happen. And again, that's not a criticism of the generation. One of the things
No, no.
one of the things my family always asks me, Dad, why do you always, I'll listen to something on I'll listen to a post of or a TikTok, and they'll go, why do you even do that? I go, because if you listen to what they're saying, they're
Mm,
actually saying something deeper than what they're saying on the surface.
absolutely.
They're saying something deeper, and you have to listen though to hear what they're really saying. And it's coming from a place of brokenness. What it is,
Yes.
I don't know, but it's a place of brokenness. And if we took the time to understand that, we'd be able to actually, like you said, begin to bring some hope into their life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's true. It's very true.
Yeah. So good. I'm really excited talking to you, Darrell. You're getting me amped up here now. We're going to start a sermon
No.
in a few minutes here.
This is great. This is great conversation.
Yeah, no, no. So, so you got an opportunity to serve, and you served on a couple of presidents. I saw some pictures
Mhm.
with some. Talk to us a little bit about that, and how did you get there? And because for me, that's, again, that's part of that faith journey, living your faith. You
Mhm.
know, and I
Mhm.
know that had to have got you to those places.
Without a doubt. So when I left Germany, I got assignment to the Pentagon, and I was there for a couple of years. And the funny thing was, I didn't like it, right? Because it wasn't the normal army that I was taught to, be and be a part of. So I always thought it was like a soft assignment. Like, oh man, this assignment's gonna make me soft. I need to get out of here, get back to, Fort Hood, Texas, or Fort Bragg, North Carolina. But again, man, it's amazing how, like you said, your faith journey, it can take you to places where you have no idea that you can go. And that's definitely what happened with me. I saw an ad, one of my friends, they were advertising about recruiting for the White House Communications Agency, right? This whole agency didn't even know anything about, was looking for service members, right? Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. And if you had a particular job skill, right, they would look for that job skill and bring you through these questions and security background and all these things. And if you were fortunate, you would get selected. So I was selected back in 1990, right? To serve with the White House Communications Agency, which is, again, it's a communications agency made up of military members who support the president, vice president, first lady, Secret Service, White House staff, and others as directed. and just a phenomenal job. A lot of pressure too,
Yeah.
but definitely a phenomenal job. So when I first got there, I went in the military as the military HR. But so in that agency, you have two jobs. You have a regular job that you do day to day, and then you have this travel job. So every time you see, the president on TV or whatever, everybody sees him, but not realizing there's a whole machine behind that.
Yeah.
And one part of that machine is that communications piece where America's sons and daughters are providing that support. And it was definitely, when I got there, George Herbert Walker Bush was the president, and definitely starry-eyed. It's like, holy smokes, what am I about to get into? And you talking about prayer, I'm telling you, I prayed probably way more there than I ever did, because one, I didn't want to make a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I didn't want to make my family look bad. I didn't want the Army to look bad.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, Lord, I need you to help me in every assignment, every trip that I go on. I need your guidance, right? I prayed over all of my team members every time we got ready to go. It was like, whether they knew it or not, it was like, Lord, whoever has any challenges, help them to compartmentalize what they can, and those that can't, allow them to have a conversation, not just with me, but any other leader, that they can feel better. And it was great because I was able to bring not the faith aspect of, again, telling people what I am, but the principles of faith and living it in front of them. So when I would conversate with somebody, they never knew, Dan, that I was, relating a story from the Bible. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yep.
oh man, I remember this story about this guy that was called to do something big and didn't think that he could speak well, right? And
Yep.
it's
Yep.
like, I can't even do this. And the person that picked him said, well, what's in your hand? He's like, well, it's just a staff, right?
Yeah.
And then I would try to get to the summary of the story. Sometimes what we have in our hand is, we look at it as one thing, but it really can be something bigger and greater, but we just got to figure that part out.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, how do I figure that out? Like, well, no, that's your part of the journey. Mine is just to tell you the story and get you going in that direction.
Yeah.
And so it was just great to be able to, again, work under the Bush administration and leading people. And then after that, Clinton came over and took over, and still traveling, still doing all this neat support. And it was just, again, an awesome experience, because now, as I used to tell people, I'm living my faith, right, at the highest level, right?
Yeah.
So now it's like more of that state, because here's the other thing I used to look at too. If I mess up, if I'm not at my best, what if somebody came to me, Dan, and said, wow, for a guy that has a lot of faith, you sure are a pretty sorry leader. Right?
Yeah.
So it was like, even on a higher pedestal, it was like, okay, show me what you would do now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just took that as, an additional challenge. Like, I'm not doing my job, for the president. I'm not doing it for the vice president. I'm doing it as if I'm doing it unto the Lord. Right. Never told them that, but that was just my mindset.
Yeah.
And it was just great because, again, I had an opportunity to live out my faith and what my hope was built on, in front of people, in front of with different challenges, as history was being made. Right. So I always look back on that. And then I worked first 6 years, right, for the White House, and I got little antsy, just wanted to do something different. Called my branch manager. It's like, hey man, I want to go overseas, do a, we call it a short tour, right? Just a 1 year tour. You can send me anywhere you want. And Dan, the first thing he said was, oh, geez, what's wrong? What type of trouble did you get into?
Yeah.
And I'm like, nope. I'm at the top of my game. I'm all is good. I just want to get my boots dirty again, right? So he sent me to Korea. And what was so great about this assignment, right, well, it was a 1 year tour, and he was like, well, you do me a favor, I'll do you a favor. I'll send you to Korea, right? Because like every time I put people in this career, they retire on me. I got to fill this position, right?
Right.
And I was like, nope, I'm not going to retire on you. I'm good. I still got a good 7 years left, And so he said, I'll send you to Korea. And then he said, I'll bring you back. And I'm like, cool. Yes, you don't have to do that. He's like, no, we'll do it. But here's the great thing about Korea, right? I'm leading these, again, younger generation of military members.
Right.
In Korea, they have these Korean soldiers that also work with us called Katusas. So now I'm mentoring young American soldiers. I'm mentoring Korean soldiers, right? And how about they have these churches there on the base, right? And one of the churches, South Post Chapel, right? There's military members that, if you bring your family, it's a 2-year assignment. So now you got these kids here going to school, and then on Sundays, they're coming to church.
Wow.
So the cool thing about what my hope was built on, it was like, okay, you work with youth, right? You're trying to help these kids in the States. Why don't you do it here while you're overseas?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm only going to tell myself this, I'm only going to be here for a year. Is that really fair to them? And the Lord spoke to me. He was like, I didn't ask you how long you were going to be here. I just asked you, are you still following me? And I was like, got it. So I started ordering this curriculum, talking to the chaplain over there. I was like, hey, I'm a youth worker. I used to work with youth. If you want, I can teach a Bible study. I can teach a Sunday school. And they was like, say no more. You're it. Tag, go forth and do good things.
Yeah.
And it was a great time, Dan, because not only was I doing my regular military job during the day, but I'm putting Bible study curriculum together, and found a book that I thought was pretty good. I think it was David C. Cook Ministries or something like that.
Yeah.
Right, ordered it, and I was like, well, we don't really have a lot of kids, so how about I just teach the middle schoolers and the high school together, and I'll teach them at the high school level. And it was great because now I'm dealing with these kids that's not in the United States, but yet again helping them figure out what is their hope built on. And that pride started kicking in, Dan, because it was like, hey, I'm putting together this great material and I'm only getting 2 kids. I'm only getting 5 kids. And I almost quit because my pride was like looking at the numbers instead of looking at the lives that are being impacted.
Right. Yeah.
And again, I had to go back to, what is my hope built on? Are you built on faith and helping people? Or are you built on trying to get a name for yourself, right? And trying to, come up with this crowd of kids so you can say, ooh, look at me. And once I, really like ate that humble pie, it was like, I made a decision that day. It's like, I don't care if I got 1 kid or 21 kids. I'm going to teach this lesson like the whole class is full.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing about it, Dan, was they started telling their friends. They were like, hey, man, you got to come to Sunday school, man. We got this crazy guy from Compton, and, man, he's breaking the Bible down in this different way. I don't even know if it's true or not, but it's definitely entertaining. And it was a lot of fun. And it just touched my own soul, right? It wasn't just the assignment, but it was like God showed me that, hey, if you, again, keep your eye on me, you can do ministry anywhere and be effective and make a difference. So that was great for me. And then I came back to the White House and then again started working with youth. And that time now supporting Vice President Gore. And then eventually I started supporting Vice President Cheney. And again, now I'm flying on Air Force Two, right? Because after 9/11, we did some shifts and created these different teams to support emergency action stuff. So now, like, okay, flying on Air Force Two, Lord, I'm going to need extra prayer because now it's not this whole team, but it's me being the lead for the comm side. And again, Dan, I would pray for, the young guy that was with me on the plane as my assistant. I'd pray for the team that I was going into because I was kind of like a command rep. Like I would show up and kind of oversee, as everything were going. But I never took that as, like you said, the big head, right? People was like, oh, let me carry your bags, Mr. Williams. No, I can carry my own bags. Trust me. The only difference between me and you is opportunity. You could easily be doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that as I'm doing this, right, I'm not letting the power go to my head. And a lot of that was because of my faith, right? What my hope was built on was not enough to make me forget why I'm here. Because Dan, it was never about me. It was like, if he allowed me to be in these positions, it has to be a reason other than supporting the president, vice president. And it's up to me to find that meaning, find that person, right? That individual I need to lead and have that listening ear ready, not to go out and try to tell people what to do, but just have that listening ear.
And so is that what's taking you to kind of this next journey of your life? You retire out of the military and you decide to say, hey, listen, I'm going to now just pour into the lives of young folks and really just begin to be a mentor in the lives of these people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And then I ended up becoming, like I said, a youth minister and a youth pastor. And it was so fun. I always go to my pastor and say, hey, whatever you need, right? That's what I'm here for, right? I have a lot of gifts. I know that I have gifts. I know that I'm not called to be a pastor, so you don't have to worry about me starting my own church, because that is not what I've been called to do. I've been called to help people and pour into them, right?
Yep.
And what I loved about that was when they needed an education leader, right? I became the education leader. So I'm putting things together. And I also tell Dan, to the day I tell people, I'm one of the biggest thieves in the world. I will steal anything from society, and I would bring it to the church if I knew that we can make it work for us. So these same little, these had these little 4-corner briefings that you would brief, higher leaders with, right? Here's the problem, here's the challenge, here's the resources needed, and here's the next steps. And I would bring that stuff into ministry and be like, here, what's the challenge? What's the resources? What's the problem? And what's the next step? And I would just incorporate all those things into the kingdom. And they were just funny because people were like, man, this thing is like a well-oiled machine. And it was good, Dan, because I was able to take myself out of the picture whenever the pastor needed me to do something different, and they can continue on that journey. So education director, then moved on to be the leader of the ministers, teaching leadership training. And then my pastor wanted to do a small group Bible studies. And it was like, hey, we want to do something different. And that's when she approached my wife and I said, hey, would you be the leaders of our couples Bible study? And I wish I could tell you, Dan, that I was like jumping for joy and count me in. But part of me was, I'm gonna have to be transparent there. We're gonna bring some of our things there. And my wife was like, I was always told, keep your business, to yourself. But after we prayed on it, and again, both of our faith, right, is built on, the Lord. So we both said, no, let's do this. And just a very rewarding time, 7 years teaching a couples Bible study every week. And like you said, digging deep, dealing with that pride, and that's my wife's words, not me, talking to the wives about not being a nagger, right? And it was just a great experience because, like you said, you had a lot of people to really just focus on themselves and not focus on the other person.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's really good. I really appreciate that, Darrell. I could sit here and talk to you all night. You really could. But I was just thinking, as we're kind of winding this down, we have a lot of things going on in our world today. And you've had a perspective that most people haven't because you've served for this country. And and I'm not going to turn this into a political because I don't want that.
No,
I want people to, this isn't about what's right and what's wrong. It's what would your recommendation be to people that are just looking at the world today and we're having this constant bickering back and forth and really, what would you do how would you encourage folks today to rise above it, to find their hope and to bridge the divide?
No, that's a great question. And I'm actually probably one of a select few individuals that can really speak to this, because the nature of the White House Communication Agency is we were supporting the office of the president. And it didn't matter if it was a Democrat, didn't matter if it was a Republican, right? All of our commanders would let everybody know, like when there was a change of administration, it's like, guys, don't forget why you're here and what you're here to do. Right. We don't get caught up in the political piece. Yes, you can have that mindset, but do not let that get in the way of our brotherhood, our sisterhood, our camaraderie. And I can honestly tell you, out of my 15 years supporting the White House Communications Agency, even though somebody may have felt a certain way, when we got on those missions, Dan, it was all about that person to your left, that person to your right. And I seen it happen, Dan. Now, granted, when people retired, they got on Facebook, you can kind of see,
Yeah, yeah,
where their allegiance were. And that's okay, because that's what we're a free country.
yeah.
But I seen it where people can work together, right, for the common good.
Mm,
So that's my message to anybody. Even today, people say, "Well, you used to work for the presidents. What do you think?" And I just go back to my own stories of, we figured out, again, why are we here? And we looked at, okay, what are those things that we do have in common,
mm.
right? Because there's, depending on how you look at the glass, you can look at all things that you don't have in common, or you can look at all things that you do have in common.
Yeah, yeah,
So let's choose to look at those things that we do have in common, and then let's figure out where can we go from there. What challenge can we tackle? And some people it's like, yeah, but I want to do this, I want to do that. And it kind of goes back to that saying about the elephant, right? You can't eat it whole, you just got to eat it a little piece at a time. And I
yeah,
always tell people, just look at where you are, what you have control over, what's within your circle of influence, and then find those that are like-minded that want to help out, whether it's education, nursing, community, whatever it is. Find out who those people are and say, hey, I can bring this to the table. Dan, I've worked with him before. He's a great speaker, right? He can bring this to the table. And then you just find out, okay, what is everybody's gifts? And then let's put some common events together, some things that we can do together. And let's just tackle that one little thing that we all are passionate about, that we believe can just make this world a little bit better.
yeah, yeah. One of the things I I'm certified as a part of the John Maxwell team, and so
Awesome.
John Maxwell wrote a recent book, and it's called Change Your World. And the reason he calls it Change Your World, because you just mentioned it. It's your sphere of influence. It's your world,
Yes.
right? And
Mhm.
today, if we would just begin to make those subtle changes in our world, which is in our own homes, right?
Yep.
And get that right, get that working good, then take the step out into your communities, and into your sphere of influence that you have. We all are wanting to tackle the big thing, like we're going to change the whole government structure, and that ain't going to
Right.
happen. But you can
It's
make a
not.
change if you begin to address your world.
It's a fact. And I can honestly say every person that's worked for me, that's come in contact with me, and other leaders that I've worked with, that's one of the first things I tell them is, don't try to look at the big picture, because the
Yeah,
big picture will paralyze you.
yeah,
Right? Just look at what's that one little thing that you can get at, right? That's that one little thing that you can do to help your team. And then, just like you said, just take it from there and then see where life takes you, right?
yeah,
Sometimes we get in the way of life, and it's like, no, I didn't tell you to go there. I just told you to just stick in this lane, because this lane is eventually going to take you to a place where you can have, like you said, more influence and more impact.
yeah. No, that's so good. Well, Darrell, I'm going to put some notes up on this show that's going to let people know how to get a hold of you. But just do you go out around the country if people are looking to bring you in to talk or anything like that? And
I do. I try not to do as much because I still have high school kids, right?
yeah,
But definitely, one of the good things about COVID, which it brought out, the virtual speaking tours,
exactly.
right?
Yep, yep.
So anybody that wants to bring me into their organization or their church, or whatever it is, I'm definitely open to do that, because as people hopefully have heard on this show, that I don't do it for the money, right? I really want to make an impact in this world. Um, I had one podcast I did before, and they were like, we always ask this one final question, right? What do you want said about you, right? Either, I don't know if it was like on your tombstone
Yeah, yeah,
or at your whatever. And I would tell them that's an easy one for me. I want to be able to, you know, be able to say that whatever gift I had, right, I use every one of them to the fullest, and I entered into heaven. I have nothing left.
yeah,
I
yeah,
left it all there, and it made somebody's life better.
yeah, yeah. I think, and you know this as well. It's when we get there and we want to hear that, well done, good and faithful servant.
Yes, yes,
And that is the servant's journey, right?
That's it. That is why we are servant leaders, Dan.
Exactly. That's it. That's it. Well, Darrell, I really am. Again, I appreciate your time, and I thank you for joining this podcast. I know the listeners have got a great, are going to enjoy this as well, and have had a good time with you. So I'll put your stuff on the show notes, and we're going to share this out. And just a reminder for those of you who are listening to this podcast, we do put this up on YouTube. So if you want to go back and watch it, you are more than welcome to. But everybody stay faithful and stay hopeful.